Belated. Yesterday or today? Yes.
Today.
Chaotic. Always 6 kids opening up gifts. It's a little chaotic, but blessed in every which way you can imagine. So.
And then how do you get back in the flow of things today? Do you just pick up like a normal?
Still looked at tape yesterday and all that stuff. So for me, it's it was just another day. I just did it from home. So, but thought the guys out there had a lot of great attention to detail, and it was good practice. So, got to continue to stack days until Sunday.
How does them adding Marshawn change your week of preparation?
For us, it doesn't. I mean, Carson's a big bruising back, very similar to Marshawn is, and so the tackling plan, all that stuff is still the same. He's a load to tackle. He's going to lower his pads, and you got to have a specific way to tackle him.
Is there an emphasis, maybe just given how he could change the emotion of a game, given who he is and where the game's being played, that, hey, obviously you're not trying to miss tackles, but we really have to make sure he doesn't do anything a little special?
No, I get it. It's cool for the fans, cool for the media to talk about, but he's another player that we got to hit as hard as we can. So, and it's no different than Carson in the way he runs the football. So it's cool that they need the emotional boost, but we look at it the same.
How do you see their offensive line, Robert, without Dwayne Brown and how they've protected Russell the last 2 months?
You know, I still think they've got good pieces there. Obviously, they're professional athletes. I never look at a professional athlete and say he's lesser than anything, but Dwayne is a really, really good football player. He has been for a very, very long time, and I'm sure whoever they have is very capable of being able to protect Russell and do a good job with it. So that's about the extent of it. I mean, Dwayne's a hell of a football player, so.
Obviously the raw numbers show that your pass rush isn't recording the sacks that it recorded earlier in the year. What are the metrics you use to determine if your pass rush is successful, and do you think it has been over the last month plus?
So for me, I've told you all before, I always look at how teams call games against us, and if a coordinator is deliberately changing the way he's called games throughout other opponents versus us, then I feel like heck yeah, it's affecting them because they've had to actually change their game plan and change the way they approach us. So last week would be a perfect example. To call 21 boots is unheard of, or not unheard of obviously, but I think we've had 25 or so boots all year, and to get it 21 times in a game tells me that our rush is still very effective. Teams are still worried about it, and for us, we just got to continue to be cognizant of it and be able to go with the flow of the game and the way the coordinator's calling plays and make adjustments as quickly as we can.
How big was the adjustment that you made to get your ends upfield, maybe more than crashing in the line on those bootlegs?
You know, the first drive, I have it written down somewhere, so forgive me if it's not 100% accurate, but first drive, I think they had 6 boots for 66 yards, and then they obviously a touchdown on that drive. For the rest of that first half, they had another 5 boots for around 40 yards, but long story short, in the second half, they had 9 boots for 25 yards in the second half is what we had them for. So we were putting people in his face even after that first drive, but they just kept calling it, which for me is a good learning experience. Is never to, you always assume they've got a few boots called in the first 15, and they'll continue to call a couple boots here and there, but they're never going to make it the staple of their game plan. And they just kept rolling with it. And so I was actually pumped that he kept calling them in the second half because I just didn't feel like it was working for him, and got us into a couple of advantageous situations in the second half that allowed us to get a couple of big stops.
How major is it for you to make that slight alteration in your scheme?
It's good for moving forward if it ever becomes, because the easy solution is to send a guy upfield, and when you're playing a zone run scheme, it's as efficient as the Rams are, or even our offense, for example. You're asking for it with regards to the run game. So the easy thing is send them up the field and you start vacating gaps, and you just open up a whole other can of worms. So the adjustment we made, feel like it was pretty sound all the way across the board, where we were able to steal a gap, and we're still working out the kinks on how that works, and it is a very, very good tool to have.
Do you think that your ability to defend that kind of took that away as far as teams looking at how to defeat your defense?
Not necessarily, because I still think teams will try, the teams are going to do whatever they can to protect their quarterback, and which was very evident on Saturday night. And so they'll still be rolling out boots, sprint pass, whatever they can, quick game, get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. And we've just got to be quick to make the adjustments that we need or get the calls that we need. And if they want to continue running them, then keep running them. Because even when you go back and watch them, we get so many boots from our offense during training camp and OTAs. When you actually watch the structure of how it was being defended, we were very clean for the most part. Guys recovered, the quarterback just kept leaking for another 4 or 5 yards or whatever. But I wouldn't put it past teams to continue trying it.
What's the counter to the quick game? What adjustments can you make? Or is it just something where it's like, all right, complete your passes, but we're going to keep them to 4 or 5 yards apiece?
Yeah, if you're obviously you want to be tighter in coverage. But if a team is running quick game, you want to be able to contest all of those and see if you can bat a couple at the line of scrimmage, see if you can bat a couple with the back end. And if teams, if your yards per attempt are less than, I think the number is 6.5, you're one of the best in football. So if teams want to dink and dunk at 4 yards, we trust that we'll be able to knock one down, we'll be able to get a PBU, we'll be able to disrupt the flow of your drive to get you to a third advantageous for us so we can get off the field. But teams don't always want to take those checkdowns, but if that's the case, then we just got to continue to play tighter coverage in the back end and understand up front that the ball's coming out quick to get our hands up.
How have you weighed this week whether to go with a Keller Witherspoon or Emmanuel Mosley?
There's been we've got full confidence in Akello. I know he's not happy with the way he played. I know we're not overly excited about it, but he still played before he got hurt. Still played at a very, very high level, and there's some things that he can clean up, and he knows he can clean up, and I've got faith that he's going to come out and play a really good game.
What happened on the touchdown catch you gave up to Cooper Kupp, the crossing route?
The crossing route. So for me, I always try to look inward, and that one was a hard one for him. You're in a man pressure. There's no low hole help. It got eaten up, and they had, the way they worked the stem, it was, I call it a runaway route. And so for me, it's a very, very hard down for a corner on that one. So I always look inward. I feel like I could have helped him a little bit better. And at the same time, we got to play with better technique and all that stuff. So it was just a simple runaway route and a man pressure that had no low plug help in it. Didn't get home.
How could Julian Taylor's potential return impact the rotation along the interior?
It could help a lot. Just to have that bigger body in there to take on some of those double teams. This is a very big offensive line. And to give some of those interior guys, when you look at Buck and Sheldon and all those guys, just the overall rotation to keep those guys fresh. So we're pumped to get them back.
What's the process for you to determine whether Jaquiski Tartt is able to step in and be somebody who can, be close to what he was before he left the lineup?
Well, first off, it'll come from the performance staff on whether or not he's healthy enough to get back with us. I know he's been practicing and trying to get back into it, but as soon as he's ready to roll and we get clearance, he'll be in there.
Have you received clearance yet?
When you're showing your players clips of Marshawn Lynch, are you showing them mostly Raiders clips or Seahawks clips?
It'd be the closest you get, so your Raider stuff.
We always talk about noise with the offense, but does that kind of noise, like did New Orleans affect your defense? Did you have to change some things?
No, kind of comes. It's really quiet when those offenses are up. But it doesn't matter. You still got to be able to communicate, whether verbal or nonverbal on defense. But it doesn't really affect defensively, no.
Back when Tartt was healthy, Sherm more than once in post-game press conference came in here and made it a point that Tartt got recognition. He was saying he was playing at a Pro Bowl, all-pro level. I'm wondering what Tartt brings to your defense that we may not necessarily see just on first look.
So Tartt, he's been in the league for a while. I know he's still young, but he's 3 years into the system now, and his communication skills, being able to work with Jimmy Ward, the indicators, just understanding football. Those are the things, just putting a calm to the defense where there's just so much communication that he brings. So when he and Fred are out there and they're communicating, it brings the whole defense kind of together, especially that front seven and including the middle third player, the nickel, which is which is something that the naked eye won't ever see. But the amount of calm he brings to there. Not to say Marcel hasn't been able to get a little bit better every single week, which he has. He's had major strides from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. But just the overall communication, the disguise, the alignments, all the things that we ask out of that strong safety, he's been, he had been on point.
Pete Carroll said that this week that, they don't talk about rivals, like, oh yeah, 49ers are big NFC rivals. They don't, he's talking those terms. Obviously, you were on that side when this rivalry was really getting going. What is he, like, what is his approach when it comes to these type of big games against an opponent that clearly is kind of a rival?
Coach Shanahan is the same in regards to the approach. It's not the Catalina wine mixer. You guys remember that movie? It's not the biggest deal in the world. Not that it's not that we don't understand that it's what's at stake and how exciting this can be and all that stuff. But your mindset should always be internally driven in that every day, every practice, every rep is a championship play, practice, rep, day, whatever it is, meeting, and you have to approach it that way. And the opponent is just secondary. And when you show up on Sunday, you're so prepared, you're so on point, you're so on your details, and you play to the best of your ability, and wherever the cards fall, they fall. But to make it about them is not the approach you ever want. You want it internally driven. You want it, and to understand that if you play to the best of your abilities, you'll make the bad teams look really, really bad, and you'll make the great teams look normal. And so our approach is to play our best every single play we can and see what happens.
What are the coaching points when you're talking to the defensive line about shooting their gun against Russell versus maybe breaking down and just ensuring that he doesn't make a last-second move to get past them? What's the balance you have to find there?
There is balance, but for the most part, it doesn't matter if you're playing a pocket quarterback, if you want to call it, or a running quarterback. It doesn't really matter. You have to have respect to your passing, to your rush lanes. You have to be respectful to the level of the quarterback when you're on the edge. You have to be respectful to the pocket push and what could happen, and being tied together, and what can happen if one of your guys takes an outside move and what you need to do to counter it. But at the same time, you don't want to handicap your guys into being so worried about where this guy's rushing that you all it just becomes what I call a mush rush, where no one's really getting off their blocks and getting to the quarterback. So you're very cognizant of your rush lanes, and you still rush to go get the quarterback and understand what he likes to do, what are his tendencies, where does he like to escape, and you just play ball from there and understand he will break the pocket. A couple of times we just got to be great in the back end, relentless, we call it plaster rules, just being relentless with our plaster rules and making sure that when he breaks the pocket, we find a man and stick with him. And the front just has to remain relentless in their pass rush and understand that the play's not over till the whistle blows.
First time you faced you had a really high success rate blitzing with K1 and with Fred. Second time you face a team, especially a good quarterback, does that intensify the chess match for you?
Yeah, because you always feel like you got to do something. You got to be a little bit different. They're expecting certain things, and you got to be able to mix in what you did, mix in some other things. So there's always a self-scout study that you got to put to it, but at the same time, you never want to it's not like you can reinvent the wheel every week. So cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.